What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today I want to talk to you guys about the 6 things that you need to know before attending the Landlord and Tenant Board in Ontario. Now, before we get started, I want to remind everyone to make sure to join our Property Hustlers Facebook group, where we're going to be using this to build a community of like-minded individuals wanting to talk all things real estate. We're going to be using this to post videos and also connect with other people who are into the property hustle. And remember, if you're interested in buying or selling real estate in Ontario, our realty is specifically geared for investors like you. So if you're interested in connecting with us, our agents are specifically trained to find great investment properties. So make sure to reach out and we'll help you out. But now let's talk about the Landlord and Tenant Board. I've been doing real estate investing for the last 15 years, and I managed approximately 800 tenancies in Southern Ontario. Now, what this means is that we've dealt with a variety of different situations, which has led us to have to attend the Landlord and Tenant Board a pretty reasonable amount of times, right? With 800 tenancies, you're gonna have some disgruntled tenancies, some troublesome properties, and just generally problems that need to be corrected and disputes that need to be resolved at the Landlord and Tenant Board. So what does this mean? It means that we're attending for a variety of reasons, and it has led us to have a lot of experience and insights into how things actually work at the LTB. Now, the first and most important thing I learned as a landlord attending the LTB is that it is better, if possible, not to go to the Landlord and Tenant Board, because if any of you are familiar with it, it takes a lot of time, it's very stressful, it's a whole ordeal. If you can avoid going, avoid going. And how do you do this? You try to settle before trial. One of the things that I see all the time where other landlords go to the Landlord and Tenant Board is that they have an opportunity for tenants and landlords to go through mediation, a last-ditch attempt for the board to put these two people together to try to resolve things. And the most ridiculous thing I find is when they put them together and they actually work things out. This essentially tells me that they didn't really put enough effort before attending the LTB to talk to each other and work something out, because most of these issues, people tend to just get heated, emotional, upset, and then they go to the board thinking, oh, we're just gonna hire lawyers, right? And this is just the only people that win in these cases are your paralegals and the lawyers, and it burns a lot of time, kills a lot of money. Avoid going if possible, settle before trial. The second thing I think is important as a landlord for you to pay attention to is to be meticulous. Make sure to cross your T's, dot your I's, because any kind of mistakes along the way, like, fundamental mistakes in the paperwork, if you're serving N4s, if you're filing a L1, if you're gonna make any mistakes, any decent person on the other side can make sure to get your case kicked. And because the LTB takes so long, you want to avoid those kind of things. And if you don't know how to do this, hire a professional and make sure that you have somebody properly representing your interests when you go to the Landlord and Tenant Board. If you're not meticulous about the work, it could cost you large, and you want to avoid that. So make sure to be meticulous. The third thing you want to be doing if you know that you're going to be attending the Landlord and Tenant Board is to make sure to be good on your documentation. Paper trail your effort. Because the worst thing is when you go to the Landlord and Tenant Board with a certain case in mind, or you want to present a certain way, you don't want it to end up being a yelling match where it's he said, she said. Make sure to document your efforts and whatever it is that you're trying to say you did, so that there's no discrepancies in the issue. You should make sure to have evidence and proof for whatever it is that you're trying to say. If you're telling the board that you had a certain conversation with a tenant that the tenant is saying didn't happen, you should be the one to have some kind of documentation, whether it's email or text, so that you can submit this to the board beforehand, and then there's no discrepancy as to whether or not that took place. So document yourself and make sure that you're going to be arriving prepared. The fourth thing I think landlords need to pay attention to and make sure to do is to maintain composition. And I'm talking about your emotional composition. It can get a little heated when a landlord goes to the tribunal to attend a matter or a dispute with a tenant, and there to be some animosity there, or there to be some frustration. So the thing you need to make sure to do is not express it at the board. Keep your cool, maintain composition, have some candor, and speak professionally. You want to make sure that you seem like a put together person, and that when you're delivering information, it's not a yelling match with the tenant, because the tribunal is there to settle disputes and they don't want to be having to deal with any one party getting emotional. One of the worst things I think I saw was when a landlord actually started pointing at and yelling at the adjudicator because they didn't like the way they were responding to their evidence, because the adjudicator was coming to a different conclusion than the landlord had. And then what happened was that adjudicator got so upset and frustrated they had to leave so that they could compose themselves, because they weren't feeling that in their current emotional state they could make proper judgment. And I was upset because now all of the rest of our cases were pushed further ahead and we couldn't have our hearings heard, and that basically delayed everything like crazy. Avoid doing things like that. It's silly to think that an adjudicator is going to rule in your favor if you upset them. Just don't do it. The fifth thing I think you should know is that the Landlord and Tenant Board, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of other people will share this, the disposition of the board is to give people a chance and keep people in their homes if possible, right? So if you go in there with an accusation, if you go in there with a problem, the board wants to see that there is a reasonable attempt to make things work. They don't want to say, oh, you paid rent late, we're going to kick you out of the home. That's not what the board wants to do. The board wants to see that they are giving landlords and tenants a fair playing field for them to both make things work. You want to be able to show the board that without any doubt, you have done everything possible to give this relationship as much of a chance to work out as you possibly could have. The more that you can push that line and that threshold of understanding that you have given this relationship a good chance, the higher the chances become for an adjudicator to rule in your favor, depending on what it is, of course. And again, this is my experience handling as many cases as we have. So don't expect to go to a hearing and then immediately the board is going to punish the tenant just because you said a few of these things. They're going to want to give everybody a chance to work things out. So make sure to manage that expectation appropriately. And then the sixth and final thing I want to tell you is to make sure to have the right expectation of time with the landlord and tenant board. Understand that this is going to be the most costly experience and it's going to be the most time-consuming experience. When we have gone through evictions in a good climate, it has often taken anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Now when we're doing evictions, it can actually take anywhere from 8 to 12, and it's because the board is backed up, things are just taking forever, and it wasn't a fun process to begin with, so we are looking as much as possible, even more now so, to settle outside the board. So if you're a landlord or a real estate investor that's looking to get into rental properties and want to know a little bit more about how to use N forms, how to use L forms as a landlord who's going to be self-representing, make sure to subscribe to our channel because we're going to be putting out a lot of content that talks about how landlords can use N forms, L forms, and under what circumstances you can use them. So I do hope you found this video to be helpful or informative. If you liked it, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more landlord tenant talk. See you in the next one.